So we're going to talk kombucha now. Kombucha, another one of my favourites is fermented tea. Have you tried kombucha before? Yep. One of the easiest ones to make. It's very low fuss, and all you need is a SCOBY, or again you can use a portion of some previously made kombucha to start your kombucha as well. So what a SCOBY is, it looks like a slimy science experiment, but it stands for a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeasts, which is precisely what it is. It's a type of biofilm basically, and it holds microbes together. And when you pop it into a sugary liquid, it will start consuming the sugars in there and create a nice effervescent drink. And as it does that, the SCOBY itself will grow larger. It grows a new SCOBY. It starts off with a really thin layer on the surface, and sometimes as it's starting to develop, it'll be so thin that little spots, areas on it where it's starting to thicken faster than other areas, will look a bit white and can be mistaken for mold, but it's not actually mold. So you want to leave it go a little bit longer to go, oh no, yep, that's right, it's actually the SCOBY, yep. If mold does grow, it'll become very obvious within a couple of weeks. So, very easy to make. All we want to do is brew up a batch of tea. So normally, this is a 2 litre container, but normally I would use maybe a 3 or 4 litre glass jar. Either way, I make up around 1 litre of tea, just a nice strong batch of tea, usually 4 organic tea bags in there, and it can be black or green tea. And then once it's cooled, you know that I can touch that now, so it's not going to kill microbes. Once it's cooled enough, you can pour it into the jar. And while it's still warm, often while it's still in, I usually use a saucepan, and I just put the sugar in the saucepan. So roughly a measuring cup of sugar, or a bit less because we've got a smaller jar today. So it seems like a lot of sugar. This is the only thing I use sugar for pretty much. So sugar in there, which you're not going to get any of because the microbes are eating, but they love the sugar. All right, so just giving it a stir, and again it dissolves better when the water is warm, so we want to dissolve it now before we top it up with more water. You don't need to bother about the stirring when you make it in the pot because it just dissolves as it comes to a boil, so that takes a step out of it. And then we want to top it up with some more filtered water. So when you're making your ferments, it's very important that you are using filtered water because things like chlorine are in water to kill bugs, yeah? So when we're trying to grow them, we don't want to put antibiotics in there basically. Then we're going to get a bit of a SCOBY from a last batch. So I've torn up some SCOBYs here so that you can take some with you. And we just pop that in. So at the moment, you can see this has a bit of a square edge. Whatever shape vessel you use, the SCOBY will grow to fit that shape. Okay, so when you first put your SCOBY in there, it's going to sink, and then it'll start creating a new one on top.
And how much do you need to put in there?
And not even that much. And then usually, so this, just again open all ferments with care because you never know how fizzy they're going to be. Okay. And putting about half a cup of a previous batch in there just ensures that it's off to a good start. Okay, and then because this is partly yeast ferment, you actually want air to get in there. So I use these jars, but I just take the rubber rim off, okay? You can use any kind of jar. You don't need an airlock, so you can use any kind of jar and just put a cloth over with a rubber band. But I just find this is less fussy, and it's enough to keep things like fruit flies out of it, okay? And then 3 weeks you want to ferment it for. So in a reasonably darkish place, so in a pantry or under a coffee table where I used to live, I used to have about 4 or 5 bottles of these underneath the coffee table and freak people out when they come over. What on earth is that? So, but yeah, so it's a good conversation starter, and it's very tasty as well. So you can, once it's fermented and you pour it into bottles, it's a good idea then to put it into airtight bottles. So whether it's a spring lock like this or just another bottle with a very well-fitting lid. And at that point you can flavour it as well. So you could put a stick of cinnamon in there, or you could put some lavender in there. You could put vanilla in there. Ginger is really yummy in kombucha, hibiscus, whatever it is that you like. You can get really creative with your flavourings as well. So that's it, 3 weeks. And the trick is at that time you'll have quite a nice thick pancake floating on top, and you can then give it a little taste. And you want to be consuming it at the point where it's no longer sweet, because obviously there's been a lot of sugar in there, but it's not yet vinegar, because it'll get less and less and less and less sweet, and then it'll turn to vinegar. So we want it at that point right in the middle, and I find it usually takes about 3 weeks to get there. Most of the ones that you buy in shops, unfortunately, are not fermented so long. It might be 10 days to 2 weeks, and they're still very sweet. So even though there'd be some benefit in terms of probiotic and enzyme content, a lot of them still contain too much sugar for my liking. Yeah, okay. So that is kombucha.